Elon Musk shocked by leaked office video revealing Milionário secrets with Donald Trump. The headline blasted across every screen, a gut punch of disbelief. Elon Musk shocked by leaked office video revealing Milionário secrets with Donald Trump. But Claire knew this wasn't a clickbait story. It was way more. Because underneath all that noise, there was a raw, dangerous truth hiding in her own company's files. And it was about their CEO, Gabriel Milionário, the tech mogul with a smile too sharp to be honest. Claire sat frozen at her workstation, the dull hum of the Silicon Valley office suddenly unbearable. Her hands shook as the video played for the third time. Gabriel and Trump locked in a conversation so secretive, yet so explosive, her heart hammered in her chest. The CEO's voice was smooth, but the words dripping off his tongue were anything but clean. Deals whispered in shadows. Promises made in power. The kind of secrets meant to stay buried. Every pixel on the shack. Watching the man she admired reveal a darker shade, the office around her buzzed with indifferent chatter, clueless to the wildfire burning in her mind. Suddenly, her phone buzzed with an encrypted message. No sender. Just 3 words. Keep your mouth. The silence that followed was colder than steel. Claire's pulse thundered. Who was watching? How deep did this go? Earlier that week, she'd stumbled across the video tucked away in an abandoned project folder, labeled only as Evolve. A byproduct of a forgotten time, or a warning buried alive? She didn't know. But soon after, her manager cornered her with a smile too tight. Eyes like ice. Forget what you saw. You're better off. For the company. For you. The shadow in his voice sent a shiver down her spine, wrapping around her like a noose, tightening. And then, the unexpected. An old associate of Gabriel appeared, Max, a man whose smile didn't reach his eyes. Over coffee, in a dim corner of a downtown cafe, Max spilled a bombshell, something raw, from the CEO's past. A secret that could blow apart the glowing facade Gabriel wore like armor. Claire felt the ground disappear beneath her. Was the man everyone worshipped just a myth built on lies? Her mind raced, piecing together fragments like a frantic puzzle. Each revelation fueled the fire inside her, but fear gnawed at the edges. She was no longer just an employee. She was a potential threat or a savior. Before she could breathe, a new menace slithered in. Her laptop screen flickered. Someone was inside her system. Lines of code melted into chaos. The office suddenly felt smaller, her steps louder. Who was behind this? Friend? Enemy? Or something far worse? Her dreams, her ambition, everything felt fragile, hanging by a thread woven from deceit and shadow. Could she risk blowing it all open? Or would that risk swallow her whole? Then her phone buzzed again. This time, an anonymous message popped up, sharp and chilling. We're watching your every move, Claire. Trust no one. Her fingers trembled as the screen dimmed. The weight of choice crushed her chest. Who could she trust now? What would she do next? The night outside pressed in, but inside, Claire was wide awake, caught between truth and loyalty, poised on the edge of a decision that could destroy everything. Hey, Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And since you're here, drop a powerful like that really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Her heart raced in her chest. A frantic drum. The screen flickered. Shadows playing across her face. Trust no one. The words echoed in her mind like a haunting mantra. The warmth of the office felt like it was closing in around her, suffocating. Then, just as she began to gather her thoughts, a loud bang jolted her from her reverie. The office door swung open, slamming against the wall. The noise drew everyone's attention. Claire's head snapped up to see Gabriel standing in the doorway. His face pale, eyes wide, with an intensity that sent icy fingers creeping down her spine. "What's going on?" he demanded, his voice sharp, slicing through the lingering chatter. The air was thick with an unsettling tension. Every colleague stared, whispers melting into a vibrant hush. What was happening? Claire's phone buzzed again, vibrating violently against the desk. Another message. She hesitated, but she had to look. "You're in danger. Meet me at the roof." Before she could process it, Gabriel was marching towards her, his presence a storm in that small space. "Claire, I need to talk to you," he said, grabbing her wrist with surprising force. Her appetite for secrets and deceit suddenly felt insignificant against the reality of his grip. "Gabriel, Now!" His voice cut through her protest. Claire stumbled to her feet, the gravity of the situation pulling her in like a vortex. They pushed through the office, the hum of conversation silencing as they moved. She couldn't help but glance back at her coworkers, bewilderment etched on their faces, before they reached the staircase. As they climbed, the steps echoed, amplifying the weight of her heart. Uncertainty clawed inside her. Why was he so anxious? What did he know? Finally, they burst onto the rooftop, the cool night air brushing against her skin. The city sprawled beneath them, a glittering tapestry marred by her rising dread. Gabriel's fingers were still gripping her wrist. He released her, only to pace, hands raking through his hair. "So you've seen the video," he said, his tone low, yet electric. "You shouldn't have. It's dangerous." "What's dangerous?" Claire stumbled on her words, still reeling from the weight of her discoveries. "What's in that video?" Before he could respond, the unexpected happened. A harsh buzz broke through the moment like a knife. Claire felt a sharp pain in her chest. She turned just in time to see Max emerging from the door, flanked by security guards. His smile was gone, replaced with an expression that dripped with malice. "Surprise!" he shouted, his voice booming over the rooftop. "Did you really think you could uncover the truth and walk away unscathed?" Gabriel's face transformed, moving from fear to fury. "You've crossed the line, Max! You don't know what you're doing!" But Max simply laughed, a chilling sound echoing against the night sky. "Oh, I know exactly what I'm doing! You see, Claire," he turned to her, his voice a low, taunting whisper. Gabriel's secrets aren't just his. They're all of ours. And now you're in this too. The words hit Claire like a slap. Ouch! Everything she thought she understood twisted in a blink. Trust, loyalty, they all hung by a thread, unraveling before her eyes. The connection she felt, the admiration for Gabriel, now felt so fragile, so misplaced. Fear rooted her in place, but clarity sliced like a blade. The truth was far darker than anything she'd imagined. The city behind her pulsed with life, but the air felt thick with foreboding. "Join us, Claire," Max continued, stepping closer, his features shadowed by the city lights. "Or you'll see how dangerous it really is to dig too deep." Claire's breath hitched, a storm brewing in her chest. She was caught between two worlds, two loyalties, two secrets. Everything felt like it could collapse in an instant. And then, as that ominous silence settled around them, she realized there was no escape now, not for any of them. Claire's breath hitched again as the new message flickered on her screen. Her mind raced, thoughts colliding in a messy jumble. "We're watching your every move, Claire. Trust no one." She had to move, act, but the walls felt like they were closing in. What if this was the end? Just daring to breathe seemed like a risk. Suddenly, the fire alarm blared through the building. Red lights flickered, casting strange shadows over her workstation. The low hum of conversation turned chaotic as coworkers scrambled toward the exits. Claire's heart raced. Was this a distraction? A sign? She grabbed her laptop, instinct screaming at her to protect the evidence. As she darted into the hall, she caught sight of Gabriel across the lobby, his eyes wide and frantic. He was shouting something, but the noise of the alarm drowned it out. The sight of his unraveling composure sent a chill down her spine. This was the powerful CEO everyone feared, not someone who would panic. Something was wrong. But before she could call out, an explosion rocked the building. A deafening blast that shook the very foundation. The walls cracked, and plaster rained down like snowflakes. Claire stumbled, barely keeping her feet, the world swirling in a haze of fear and confusion. People screamed, rushing for the exits, a mass of bodies pushing against her. Adrenaline surged, and just as she regained her footing, she spotted Max ripping through the crowd, his face twisted in an almost gleeful expression. Why was he smiling? Panic clawed at her throat as they made eye contact. What was happening? This wasn't a drill. This was real. The chaos around her felt surreal. She heard a voice over the intercom. "Stay calm. Emergency services are on the way." But Claire didn't feel calm. She felt hunted. Then she turned back to Gabriel, determined to figure out what he knew. He was frantically collecting himself, a subtle shift in his demeanor, suggesting this was all orchestrated. Claire couldn't wrap her head around it. She had trusted him. Through the haze, she caught snatches of conversation. Sabotage, leaked information, betrayal. Each word cut deeper, igniting a fiery dread. What was Gabriel hiding? As she inched closer, trying to catch his eye, another figure emerged from the smoke. A tall woman, unmistakably powerful, with dark hair and eyes like flint. She moved with purpose, fingers dancing over her phone, sending messages like a conductor leading an orchestra. Gabriel met her gaze, and for a brief moment, fear flickered in his eyes. "Get her out of here," he yelled to an aide. Claire's breath caught. Why wasn't he including her? Why was he pushing her away? In that moment, a sharp realization hit Claire like a freight train, freezing her in place. Max had laughed when she saw him. Was he in on this? The secrets she had uncovered weren't just about Gabriel. They were about something much bigger. And as if the universe was answering her questions, the building trembled again, debris raining down, slicing through the chaos. Gabriel locked eyes with her one last time, desperation lacing his voice. Claire, trust me, you have to leave! His urgency clawed at her. She had to stay. But before she could take a step forward, the woman turned, and Claire recognized her from a photo on a magazine cover. Leela Corin, a notorious investor known for her ruthless tactics. What connection did she have to Gabriel? Suddenly, the pieces began to shift. Before she could act, the lights went out. Darkness enveloped them, fear gripping every soul in the building. Claire's heart hammered. This was no accident, no simple explosion. And with that realization, a new message buzzed on her phone. You're deeper in than you think, Claire. It's time to choose your side. Everything she thought she knew hung in the balance. What was she really a part of? The words flashed on her screen, paralyzing Claire in place. You're deeper in than you think, Claire. It's time to choose your side. Panic tightened around her chest like a vice. She could feel the chaos swirling in the background, the shouts, the sirens, the blaring alarms. But all she could think about was how everything had spiraled so far out of control. The air was thick with smoke, and as Claire took a gasping breath, the lights flickered back on just long enough for her to see the terror on her colleagues' faces. She wanted to flee, to find safety, but her feet felt glued to the ground. All she could see was Gabriel, his face written in desperation, nearing a point of breaking. Then Max's laughter rang out, ringing with a sinister joy. You're just a pawn, Claire, he jeered, the dark amusement glinting in his eyes. This is bigger than both of you. You should have stayed out of it. Before Claire could respond, the world erupted again. A distant, thunderous crash echoed from below. The floor shook, a violent tremor coursing through the building. Cracks spiderwebbed the walls, and a loud scream broke through the chaos, cutting through the frantic. You did this! You're behind all of it! And just like that, the tension changed. For a moment, time slowed as Claire's eyes darted between the two men. Gabriel, the suave CEO she thought she knew, and Max, the shadow that loomed larger every day. But then something unexpected happened. A violent crash came from the roof access door. It burst open. Claire's breath hitched. In walked not just any figure, but Kayla, Gabriel's trusted executive assistant. But this wasn't the poised woman Claire knew. Her clothes were torn, hair wild, and her eyes held the spark of a fire that set alarm bells ringing in Claire's mind. Claire! Kayla shouted, her voice raw with urgency. They're coming!
Claire contó el mundo sin de había, pero Kayla pudo contestar atrás de el jefe de la compañía, Jason, de cómo pueden tratar este procedimiento. Era un queso enfermo. Just a little more time, and you will be our golden ticket. Everything froze at the revelation.
Claire's head spun. Gabriel gripped her arm tighter, pulling her back. Stay away from her, Jason! Kayla's eyes darted between everyone, fear morphing into resolve. We have to get out. Now! No more waiting! That's when the building vibrated again with an earth-shattering blow. A window shattered, raining glass like dangerous confetti. Claire felt the panic rush through her. Yet as the chaos grew, as people screamed and scattered, her thoughts went still. The unthinkable settled. Gabriel wasn't just a man she admired. He was the very heart of this tangled web of deceit. "What did you do?" Claire whispered, feeling the betrayal shake her to the core. All the trust she'd built on admiration was in flames. Yet as Gabriel's desperate gaze searched hers, another explosive crash rattled the foundation. Chaos roared anew, but it was a new voice that cut through the noise. A calm, commanding voice that echoed across the rooftop. "Enough! This ends now!" The voice belonged to Leela Corin. She stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. She gestured sharply, and, as if on cue, a swarm of armed figures filled the rooftop. Suddenly, Claire understood why everyone had acted this way. Leela had control, and she was pulling strings from behind the curtain. "Game over," she said, smirking. The finality of her words hit Claire like a punch. Every relationship, every trust, hung by a single thread, teetering into a void of betrayal. In that moment, everything Claire believed shattered into pieces around her. She was caught, ensnared in a dangerous game she didn't understand, surrounded by secrets that could break or bind them all. What side was she really on? And could she fight her way out? The horizon blurred into shadows, and as Leela's men closed in, the whisper of urgency filled the air. There was no turning back, only the uncertainty of what it truly meant to choose a side now. Claire's heart raced. Trust no one. The message echoed in her head. The screen went dark, leaving her in a spotlight of dread. Who was watching? Her gut clenched with fear, a twisting, heavy feeling threatening to swallow her whole. Just as she began to pace, trying to shake off the suffocating weight of her thoughts, the office door swung open. It was Max, his expression twisted between confidence and concern. He marched straight toward her, eyes darting around like a hawk searching for danger. "Claire, we need to talk, now!" His voice was urgent, nearly a whisper. "What about?" she demanded, trying to mask the panic rising within her. "Not here! Come with me!" He grabbed her wrist and pulled her toward the elevator. Each step felt heavier than the last. The thrill of being part of something monumental was crashing down around her, like breaking glass. Inside the elevator, the doors closed with a metallic thud. Max leaned closer. "I found something! Something big!" She barely had time to reply before the elevator jolted. Lights flickered, the whole thing shuddering, like it was about to drop. Claire clutched her chest. "What's happening?" "I don't know," Max yelled, his calm facade cracking. Suddenly, the lights went out completely. They were plunged into darkness, the small space filled with a suffocating silence. Panic surged through Claire like wildfire. Then in the dark, she heard it. A loud bang. A hissing sound followed, like air escaping from a balloon. Instinct kicked in. They had to get out. Claire banged on the panel, desperate for help. But the elevator remained stuck, an empty tomb. "Max!" she shouted, panic lacing her voice. "What do we do?" He fumbled with his phone, a weak beam of light
flickering to life. "I don't know! Wait!" The light danced across his face, revealing something hidden in his expression. Fear? Guilt? Before she could ask, he pointed the screen toward a corner of the elevator. What she saw froze her blood. A small camera, blinking red. Someone had been watching. "Oh my God," Claire whispered, the pieces falling into place. "We can't let them see us here," Max hissed, and then his voice turned low and chilling. "They know." "Know what?" Claire's heart pounded, her breaths quick and shallow. Max edged closer, whispering, "About the deal. About Gabriel. It's bigger than you think. Gabriel isn't just in league with Trump. He's connected to them in ways you can't imagine." "Connected how?" she pushed, every instinct screaming for clarity. "His past. It's criminal. He's been laundering money, Claire. Those deals, they're financing something sinister." The words fell like heavy stones. "Why didn't you say anything before?" she gasped, her mind racing. "I didn't know the extent. But I found out when I started digging into his associations. Then I got threats, like yours. It's why I came to you." "Threats?" The weight of betrayal hit her hard. She thought she could trust him. "Why should I believe you?" "Because I didn't want to get involved. I didn't want to drag you into this." A sudden jolt shook the elevator, and they both gasped. The lights blinked back on, revealing their faces pale and drawn. But Claire wasn't ready to accept this twist without evidence. "Max, if this is true, we have to confront him. We can't let this corruption continue." But as she spoke, the elevator door slid open, revealing not the expected office floor, but a deserted parking garage. Empty, silent, Max's eyes widened in horror. "Claire, they know we're onto them. We have to go." Before she could respond, a figure stepped into the light. It was Gabriel, his expression twisted in a snarl, eyes blazing with fury. "I've been waiting for you two," he said, his voice laced with danger. Claire felt the ground beneath her shift, her loyalties spiraling into chaos. Everything she thought she knew about her boss, her company, her life was crumbling. And just like that, she realized the real game had just begun. Claire's pulse raced as she stared at her phone. Who could be watching? The cold grip of fear wrapped around her heart. Trust no one. The words echoed like a warning she couldn't ignore. She forced herself to breathe. The office felt like a pressure cooker, and she was trapped inside it. Suddenly, the flickering lights overhead buzzed. The hum of activity in the office faded, swallowed by a thick silence. It was unsettling, like the calm before a storm. Claire glanced around, searching for familiar faces, but everyone was busy with their screens, oblivious to the chaos spinning in her mind. Then an alarm blared. The screech sliced through the air, dropping heavy tension like a stone. Red lights flashed, casting eerie shadows across the room. Panic rose. Employees started shouting, scrambling for the exits, their faces a mix of confusion and fear. Claire felt a rush of adrenaline. What was happening? She seized her laptop, clutching it against her chest. The chaos spiraled, but she was focused. This was her chance. She had to escape and figure this out. Before she could take a step, a voice sliced through the turmoil. "Claire, you need to see this." It was Max, his expression frantic. He motioned for her to follow as he dashed to a conference room. Whatever he wanted to show her seemed urgent, and she didn't hesitate. She pushed through the throng of confused coworkers, heart racing. Inside the conference room, screens flickered with the same video she'd seen earlier. The chaotic footage of Gabriel and Trump squirmed in her mind. But there was more. Max had connected another video feed. The sound was turned up to a deafening level. Claire squinted at the screen, trying to make sense of it. Then, there it was. A grainy, different angle. This time, Gabriel didn't just speak to Trump. He leaned closer, a conspiratorial grin splitting his face. Claire's stomach dropped as she listened. "Tell them the plan is set, but I need my conditions met." Gabriel's voice, cold, calculating. The revelation hit her like a punch to the gut. Conditions? What plan? Suddenly, the room shook. A loud crash echoed from outside. The walls trembled. Claire's instincts kicked in. She ducked. A commotion raged outside. The sound of shattering glass and angry shouts merged into chaos. Then Max turned pale. "Claire, it's not just a video. They know we're on to them. They're coming for us." His eyes widened with fear, then mirrored her own. Who was coming? What had Gabriel dragged them into? At that moment, the door burst open. A group of men in suits stormed in, their faces unreadable, eyes cold as steel. Immediately, Claire felt an overwhelming dread, a full-body shiver running down her spine. "You work for Gabriel Milionário?" one of the men barked, scanning the room, locking eyes with her. "We need the footage now!" Claire's world spun. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in. Those men, they were not here for casual conversation. This was clearly serious. Her breath quickened as she fumbled for words, but nothing came. Max pushed her behind him, ready to shield her. "Leave her out of this," he spat defiantly. But even he looked uncertain. The air felt charged with danger, and every instinct screamed at her to run. But Gabriel's face flashed in her mind. The secrets, the lies. Could she really turn back now? Another blow shook the building, and dust drifted down from the ceiling. Chaos swirled around her, each second ticking louder in her ears. Just then, Claire's phone buzzed again. She barely glanced down at the screen, but the message hit like a bomb. "Trust no one but us. A reckoning is coming." The words twisted her gut into knots. With the men advancing, Claire felt time slowing, the framework of her reality crumbling. What had she gotten herself into? The truth, once buried, was clawing its way to the surface, and she was caught in the crossfire. Heart racing, she looked up, ready to make a choice that could change everything. The phone buzzed in her hand, breaking the heavy silence around her. Claire's heart raced. She glanced at the screen, the words echoing in her mind. "We're watching your every move, Claire. Trust no one." Her fingers trembled. The weight of the message pressed down like a fist around her chest. Suddenly, she heard a loud crash from the break room, followed by panicked voices. Adrenaline surged through her veins as she stood, her body moving almost on its own. Claire rushed to the doorway, her heart pounding like a drum. The office buzz faded out, replaced by the frantic shouts of her colleagues. "What happened?" shouted someone. "Call 911!" Another voice yelled.
rising above the chaos. She pushed through the crowd, and her breath hitched in her throat. On the floor lay her manager, Jacob, crumpled and pale. His hands clutched his stomach. Blood seeped through his crisp white shirt. The bleak shock on his face sent her reeling back into the shadows. Max stood near him, looking wide-eyed but oddly calm. Claire's stomach dropped as she caught his glance, something cold and unsettling lurking behind his eyes. The room swelled with frantic energy, but in that moment, time felt like it had stopped. Jacob gasped for breath, his eyes rolling back, desperation etched across his features. "Is he breathing?" Claire shouted, pressing forward. Max stepped beside her, knelt down, and checked Jacob's pulse. The crowd held its breath. "It's weak! We need to—" But those words never finished. A grating sound echoed through the office, like a siren warping reality into a nightmare. The lights flickered, and the monitors overhead pulsed with static, their bright screens exploding into blinding white. A low, rumbling noise filled the air, and panic surged. Claire's mind raced. Was this a power outage? A security breach? Terror enveloped her senses. Then she heard a voice, familiar, yet twisted. "Open your eyes, Claire!" It was Gabriel, the CEO, now standing in the doorway, face obscured in shadow. "You have no idea what's really at stake." Claire's stomach sank. It felt like the floor had vanished beneath her. "Gabriel, what's happening?" she demanded. His smile was sharp, his eyes glinting with something dark. This is the beginning. You should have kept your nose out of places it didn't belong." Before she could respond, he lunged toward Jacob, as if the man's fading pulse was tethered to his own survival. Claire's blood froze. It was as if the world was colliding, truths unraveling, as she stood in the eye of a brewing storm. In that instant, chaos erupted. Footsteps pounded, and voices screamed. Claire felt the air shift, heavy with secrets, each revelation slamming into her like a tide. She glanced at Max, looking more frightening than before. He met her gaze, his expression a mask of emotions, conflict, fear, and something else, darker. "Claire, run!" he shouted suddenly, eyes darting. And just like that, the room trembled, glass shattered from the windows, and the lights burst into darkness. Screams ripped through the office like a living thing. Claire's instincts kicked in. She spun on her heel, adrenaline flooding her body. But as she turned, she caught sight of Gabriel, his form enveloped in shadows, blade-like hands extending toward her. The flicker of his phone screen illuminated his face for a brief moment. A fractured smile, the fullness of deception unraveling around him. "Claire!" he hissed as the chaos swallowed their world. "Choose your side!" And with that, everything shattered. Claire dashed for the exit, heart racing, mouth dry. The truth hung heavy in the air, wrapped in a web of danger. What had she stumbled into? What lay beyond this threshold? Each heartbeat screamed for answers, yet all she was left with was fragmented glimpses of trust, betrayal, and the looming question: who was truly in control? Claire dashed for the exit, fear twisting her gut. Chaos surrounded her, and the rising smoke filled her lungs. But just when she thought she could escape, a massive shockwave hit, throwing her off balance. She stumbled, but caught herself against the wall. Dust swirled around her. and muffled cries echoed in her ears. As the crowd surged past her, Claire caught a glimpse of Gabriel, his face a mask of fury and desperation. "Get out!" he shouted again, but his eyes bore into hers with a wildfire intensity, demanding something she couldn't understand. "Why? What are you not telling me?" she shouted back, the words spilling out alongside her panic. But before he could answer, the lights flickered again. An explosion of sound thundered from outside, rattling the very air around them. The floor shook like an earthquake. Claire looked toward the door, dread curling in her stomach. This wasn't just a fire drill. This was real. "Claire, listen!" Max's voice cut through the chaos, grabbing her attention. He was pulling her away from the door, and for a moment, his urgency felt like the only solid thing in a storm. "We need to find a safe spot. Trust me." But as Claire turned back to Gabriel, something in the shadows shifted. It felt like a heartbeat. The world around her stilled for a moment. Gabriel's expression morphed, fear crawling into his eyes. His mouth opened as if to speak, but the words froze on his lips. Then everything exploded. The roof above them shattered. Debris began raining down, and in an instant, the ceiling came tumbling, a flood of darkness crashing into the light. Claire ducked, shielding her head with her arms as the world imploded around her. Dust filled her mouth and nostrils, stinging her eyes. Screams erupted, a cacophony of terror. Claire staggered back, trying to make sense of the nightmare unfolding. Through the haze, she spotted Gabriel, standing defiantly as pieces of the ceiling fell around him. "No!" he roared, a primal sound that shook her to her core. And just as suddenly, chaos met clarity. From the wreckage, a smoke-filled figure emerged. It was Kayla, but she didn't look the same. Her eyes glinted with fury, but also determination. With hands raised, she stepped out of the shadow like a specter unleashed. "Enough!" she shouted, her voice slicing through the madness. Claire's heart seized. What was happening? Kayla had always been just Gabriel's assistant. Always the shadow, but never the light. As Kayla surged forward, she pulled something from her pocket. A flash drive. "We've been waiting for the right moment," she said, her voice steady despite the tremors in the ground. But then she turned to Gabriel, and everything twisted. "You think you're in control?" "You haven't been running the show, Gabriel." "None of us have." Suddenly a hush fell over the crowd. Claire felt the world shift again as people turned to see what would happen next. Gabriel's fierce bravado crumbled, revealing something vulnerable beneath. "What are you talking about?" he asked, confusion sifting into his voice. Then, with a sudden flourish, Kayla clicked a button on her flash drive. The screens around them flickered to life, displaying a live feed that took Claire's breath away. Images of Gabriel flooded the screens, meetings with dark figures, whispered conversations, dealings that dripped with deceit. But it wasn't just those images, it was the title that blasted across, bold and clear. "The Fallen Empire, Gabriel's True Master." Claire's heart stopped. The shocking revelation was like ice slicing through her. "No," she whispered, the realization crashing around her. What was this? The very foundation of everything she thought she knew quaked beneath her. The crowd gasped, and a ripple of disbelief washed over the room. Was this true? Were they just pawns in a game much bigger than themselves? All at once, Claire felt a suffocating weight settle in her chest. Kayla's eyes burned with fierce clarity. You should have chosen your allies wisely, Gabriel. You're not just a CEO. You're part of a larger operation that you thought you could control. And now, it's all coming down. Claire looked back at Gabriel, whose composure had shattered. His face paled, revealing the true man standing behind the facade she had admired. Betrayal radiated through her veins. This was more than she had bargained for, and in that moment of vulnerability, Max stepped forward, a new intensity sparking in his eyes. It's time we choose our side, and it may not be the side we think. Everything was spiraling. The stakes were higher than ever, dealing with shadows they had only begun to glimpse. Claire's heart raced. They were in it now, deeper than she could have ever imagined. With every heartbeat, the uncertainty grew thicker around her, pressing her to make a choice. What side would she choose? And was there even a way back? Claire looked back at Gabriel. Gabriel, is it true? Claire pressed, desperation making her voice sharp. You've been lying to all of us? What's really going on? He opened his mouth, but before he could respond, the emergency alarms screamed louder, drowning out everything. The ground shook, and dust swirled around them, sharp cold air rushing from somewhere unknown. She could feel the panic crescendoing. Without warning, the outside door burst open. A strange figure stepped through the chaotic mist, dressed in black. Face obscured by a mask, the newcomer surveyed the room. Step away from him, the figure demanded, voice low and commanding. The atmosphere shifted. Gasps echoed through the room, hearts racing in sudden fear. Claire turned sharply, eyes wide, searching for safety. This was madness. Were they truly under attack now? What do you want? Gabriel's voice shook with a mix of authority and fear. Everything you've built is about to collapse, came the chilling reply. And you're not leaving this rooftop. The masked figure stepped further inside, revealing a small gadget in hand, glowing ominously. Claire's instinct screamed danger. An electric hum filled the air, charging it with tension. The atmosphere felt thick, suffocating. What is that? Claire asked, her voice trembling. The figure pointed the device at Gabriel, the light pulsing ominously. Your secrets need to be revealed. Today's the day. Before anyone could react, a deafening blast erupted, a shockwave ripping through the room. Everything seemed to explode at once. Glass shattered, lights flickered, and chaos engulfed them. People screamed as they stumbled, throwing themselves to the ground. Claire covered her head with her arms, her heart racing uncontrollably. Then silence fell. Everything was eerily still. Claire blinked through the haze, struggling to catch her breath. The masked figure had vanished, blending into the chaos. Then she saw him, Gabriel, on his knees, his face pale, shock written all over him. His hands shook as he held a small device, a flash drive that had fallen from his grasp. Claire! His voice was barely a whisper, laden with a desperation she hadn't seen before. It's worse than you think. That device, it shows everything. Her breath hitched. More than just the videos? The truth of him? But before she could respond, Kayla began to back away, her eyes widening with fear. I can't stay. She turned to run, but Claire reached out,
grabbing her wrist. "Wait! What do you mean?" Claire shouted. Then, in that moment of horror, Kayla turned suddenly, her face a mask of determination. "I'm not who you think I am." Those words hung in the air like poison. The gravity crushed Claire's chest. "What are you talking about?" Claire breathed, stunned. Kayla's expression shifted, eyes glinting with something sharp and painful. "I was sent to watch you all, to monitor for any signs of rebellion. I never meant to grow close. Stop!" Gabriel shouted, his voice rising with a fierce protectiveness. "You can't do this, Kayla!" But she continued, her voice strong. "Your empire is crumbling because I let it, but I'm done playing the pawn." Before anyone could react, she turned and tossed the flash drive into the air. It landed, skidding across the floor, the device sparking. The room was plunged into blackness. Lights went out, alarms screamed, and chaos erupted once more. "Kayla, no!" Claire yelled, terror wrapping her like a vice. A sharp crack of thunder echoed outside, rattling the building. Claire stood frozen, the mask of reality slipping away. Kayla was a player in a game that had hollowed her out, leaving them all vulnerable to a truth that was only beginning to unravel. Gabriel's realization hit harder than any blast. "You were never on our side?" But the answer came too late. The world plunged into darkness, and the sound of running footsteps grew. They had unleashed something far more dangerous than their twisted reality. A shadow that threatened to consume them all. As the room burned with noise and fear, Claire felt something snap within her. In that chaotic swirl, she realized they were all trapped now. Not just by Gabriel's deceit, but by Kayla's explosive betrayal. And deep down, a chilling thought crossed her mind. Who else among them hid a truth too dark to comprehend? As the dust settled around her, Claire's chest felt heavy, like a weight pressing down her heart. The chaos had erupted into an intensity she could hardly comprehend. Coughing through the smoke, she looked around, her eyes darting between Gabriel, who knelt in disbelief, Kayla, whose eyes brimmed with hidden intentions, and Max, who seemed to wrestle with his own inner demons. "What have we done?" Claire breathed, the reality crashing in like a tidal wave, washing away her resolve. Gabriel slowly picked himself up, staring at the flickering screens displaying his treachery. Betrayal in the room was palpable, a raw wound that throbbed in the silence that followed. "This is just the beginning." "Begin to what?" Claire seethed, stepping closer. "What more can you possibly do when the truth is exposed?" Kayla glanced at her, a glimmer of conflict flashing in her eyes. "You don't know the half of it," she said quietly. "There are forces at play here that you can't begin to understand. Gabriel isn't the only player." Just then, louder than before, the alarms blared again, a continuous wail that pierced through the thickening tension. Outside, a line of emergency vehicles had arrived, sirens cutting through the night. Reality rushed back, and Claire felt the urgency pulse through her veins. "Get out now!" a fire marshal shouted, as he rushed in, waving his arms to direct everyone outside. Gabriel shot Claire a desperate look, a hint of the man she once admired, flickering back to life. "We need to stick together, Claire. We can fix this." His words were frantic. "Fix what, Gabriel?" Claire exclaimed, suddenly angry. You've built this empire on a foundation of lies. You treated us all as pawns. The emotions roiling within her burned hotter than the flames of chaos outside. She felt betrayed, angry, and yet terrified of the unknown future. Max stepped in, raising his hands with urgency. "We can't stay here. We need to go now!" Kayla tossed her head back, exhalando sharply. "Run! Find the evidencia. If we all come together, maybe we can take down whoever is really pulling the strings." And in an instante, Claire's resolve solidified. It was too late to go back, too late to escape the unfolding disaster that connected them all. Together, they formed a shaky alliance, stepping into the unknown, hearts racing with fierce determination. Yet just as they turned to flee, a figure blocked the exit. Lila Corrin, flanque bajo serpicerios, e predatoria sonida gració sus labios. "Leaving so soon? Esta pieza comienza." Claire se quedó, con la ansiedad temblando a su espalda. No sabía quién era más peligrosa, Gabriel o Lila. In that moment, a rush of adrenaline surged through her, igniting a fire she never knew she had. "We fight together!" she shouted, locking eyes with Gabriel one last time. And without hesitation, they surged toward the exit, united against the dark abyss ahead. The people around them screamed for safety, while Claire's heart raced with an undeniable sense of purpose. They weren't just fighting for their lives. They were fighting for the truth, for every lie that had shaped their lives. As they burst through the exit, the night air hit them like a cooling balm, but they weren't safe yet. Behind them echoed the shouts, the chaos, and somewhere in that tumult lay secrets that demanded to be uncovered. Claire turned back, her voice unwavering. "It's not over! We'll expose the truth!" With those words lingering in the air, they knew there would be no easy resolution. The stakes were rising, deepening their resolve to confront the hidden dangers waiting just beyond the light. And for Claire, the uncertainty mirrored the spark of a new reality emerging from the ashes. But she also knew, as she stood with the remnants of her shattered world, that danger was still lurking. And now, more than ever, she had to be ready. This is just the beginning. Wait, before you go, listen closely. You have to subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next thrilling chapter of this story. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to keep the algorithm wide awake. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. And don't wait even a second longer to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this epic finale. True fans know how important your support is. Let's keep this adventure going together!